Hi, this is Janelle Finch, and thank you for tuning in to my video blog. Today I would like to share my recent mental ramblings on the concept of purity, or around the concept of purity. Purity is one of the Niyamas in the yoga limbs, and I'm currently furthering my study in yoga and yoga therapy. And as such, I'm contemplating yoga philosophy more and more often. And purity has come up a lot as like this loaded word that I'm rubbing up against and curious how I'm connected to it or how I relate to it. And also another thing that's been coming up a lot for me is, and connected to purity, is this idea of Immaculate Conception and the story of Immaculate Conception. And they both seem to carry a similar dynamic for me. How do I relate to these ancient texts and these ancient, perhaps, suggestions of ways of being pure and worthy? So, as I was on my jog today, this was rolling around in my mind, and I came to think that perhaps purity as an experience is really when there's a lack of experience of shame. And as I've been attempting to integrate for myself the story of Immaculate Conception, not because I'm personally a Christian, but because I do live in a culture that, in Canada, where the dominant culture is strongly connected to Christianity, although that's changing more and more. However, I grew up in a dominant culture of Christianity, and so it's been a challenge for me to integrate that story, especially when I was a young woman. So, as I've been considering the word purity and reflecting a lot on it, and as I've been working to integrate the story of Immaculate Conception, I've come to wonder if the story serves more as a metaphor, and if, like I said before, if an experience of purity is when we lack an experience of shame, if perhaps the story of Immaculate Conception has more to do with creativity where there's no shame involved. And, for me, what that brings up is this sense of, well, what is shame? Where does that come from? And is it useful? Is it a guiding light? And I would say, from my own personal experience, when experiences or when information comes into my system, there's a definite kind of radar that registers whether something feels healthy or unhealthy. But then there's also, and for those of you who are familiar with inner work, there are also things that hit my radar and they perhaps get skewed by my own shadows, which I feel like there's a lot of shadows around sexuality, which perhaps then informs a misperception of the metaphor of Immaculate Conception and the metaphor potential of the story of Immaculate Conception, and perhaps even the metaphor potential of the word purity. So, I think for us, for ourselves, we need to consider our own shadows, shadows as in our own hang-ups that get in our way of accurately perceiving ourselves and the world around us. And I would like to suggest I'd like to offer my more recent interpretation of the story of Immaculate Conception. And that is that it's creativity born free of shame, and creativity born free of pathology. And I feel that sort of creativity, which, in that story of Immaculate Conception is the Holy Child, is perhaps suggesting this sense of mutual respect and empowered engagement, like a choice to engage between the opposites, which could be man and woman, or light and darkness, or spirit and matter, or red and blue, or whatever complementary opposites come together to create immaculately. And of course, we can create non-immaculately as well, which I interpret as pathology, which is why this story perhaps is really a blueprint for healthy creation. So whether you take that literally, or whether you can take that in as like a psyche template, as a way to even create with your imagination, or with your thoughts, or with your words, or in relationship with the earth, anything. Just this idea that when there is a lacking of shame, which doesn't mean a lacking of being conscientious, but this real respectful engagement that then results in immaculate and pure creativity. So I'm hoping that doesn't come across too religiously loaded. It's not meant to be. These are concepts that have been rolling around in my being, and I'm offering them as marbles to roll around in your own being if it feels useful, whether that means it inspires further contemplation, or inspires you to unlike my Facebook page, or whatever it is that it inspires. I hope it inspires immaculately, whatever it inspires. That's my intention. So all the blessed and best. Thank you for listening. Bye.